Hello folks, welcome, it's Chris here from MoDXtra Games and Collectibles, and welcome to today's review of the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Batman Knightfall figure. Now, if you're regular around these parts, you'll know that normally I open my review videos up with an unboxing of the figure, where I, unbox the figure and talk about the packaging and all that kind of good stuff. But just a word of warning for the wise, a public service announcement, if you will, for anyone out there considering becoming a content creator. When you set your camera rig up to film something like an unboxing, see these eyeglasses? It's recommended that you wear these when you set the focus on your camera, so that when you come to edit your video, you'll find that the footage you took is usable and not so blurry that it's unusable. Because around these parts, we're so pro, that's how we roll. So yeah, today's video, it's been a while since I've opened up a review video with a straight to cam bit, but yeah, today's video is going to be a review of this bad boy here, the Knightfall Batman. I'm just going to give you a few key headlines as to some of the comments that I made during said unboxing that you're going to miss. Which, to be fair, when it comes to McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse boxes, there's not a lot to say, but a couple of things I did point out. I talked about the artwork on the back. This is from Batman issue 492, which is the very first issue to feature the Knightfall header on the comic ranges. I, in fact, in the unboxing, and we'll do the same now, showed off my own copy. Here it is, Batman 492, looking very worse for wear. I'm sure that's freaking out some hardcore card and bag collectors out there. Look at how yellow I've let that go. I mean, give me a break, guys. I bought it when I was 13. You know what I'm saying? And I've kept that since I was 13. I'm like in my mid-40s now. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it is proper battered. But yeah, loving that Norm Brayfogle art in there. That's the inspiration for this. There was a bit of chat about that. What else did I talk about? I talked about the fact that McFarlane, because he's a prick, has announced a gold label San Diego Comic-Con exclusive version of this figure with some great paint applications and some darker grey gear on, and a better trading card and a trading card stand and all this kind of stuff, and a better foot stand, and how I was a little bit aggravated by that, but I'm going to talk about that in another video coming soon. And then what else did I mention? Oh, and just the fact that I wish that McFarlane didn't attach the foot stand and the trading card to the backing card so I can make better use of those. I complained a little bit about the cape going through the cutaway at the back and the noise the plastic blister pack makes when you're pulling it out. And yeah, that was it. You're all up to speed. So that's what you missed. So when you hear me in this video reference things like, oh, when I recorded the unboxing and I mentioned that earlier, that should cover all that ground. All right? So that's it. Enough of me now. You've had 3 minutes of me chuttering on without your classic unboxing. Let's move on to the actual review and get into taking a closer look at the figure. All right? Here we go. And here we are then, folks. Here is the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Knightfall Batman in the plastic. It's been a few days now since I recorded the unboxing section of the video that you have just watched. And now I'm back ready to share a few review thoughts with you. So if you're new around these parts, just to let you know, a MoDXtra Games and Collectibles review takes place in 3 further sections to the vid that I call the 3 A's. The first A is aesthetic. We're going to talk about how the figure looks, what's the visual experience like. Let's get into sculpting, let's get into paint applications, let's get into the colour schemes and all that good stuff. Then the second A, which is articulation. How does the figure move? How does the figure pose? What's the range of possibilities in that space there? And then finally, the third A is accessories and added value. What else has the company thrown in this case McFarlane Toys, to add some value and to improve our gameplay experience? And with all that said and done, if you're thinking about picking up a Knightfall Batman of your own, it's my hope that the thoughts I share today will get you off the fence, help you make up your mind, make you decide whether this is indeed a figure for you to go and pick up. So let's not dilly-dally around, let's get straight into it, and let's talk about the aesthetic. And man, I've got to say, the aesthetic visual experience with this figure is really quite something else. I'm always a big fan of the McFarlane Toys sculpt detail, and this is definitely smashing it out the park as far as sculpting goes. I wish I really wish that the Marvel Legends team over at Hasbro would take a leaf out of Toddy's book and learn a little bit of something about, fabric and texture and shape that they can take over into their line, because look at this. It's awesome. The way the draping and the folding and the little creases in the Bat uniform are just really amazing. Add a lot of texture, a lot of depth to the experience of what we're looking at. I mean, if you look at even in the rubber nappy pants area, we've got these little kind of very natural kind of fabric folds, and then these bits pulled tight where the pants, the elastic on the pants are pulling tight on the top of his lycra there, and all. Can you see all in here around the abs and the little fabricy folds and stuff? Really into that. I think that's an excellent piece of sculpting, and it's the same with the cape as well. Even though it's a solid piece of that kind of rubbery plastic there, you can see the folds and the creases and the way it drapes off his shoulder. Very natural, just really adding that texture and depth that I mentioned before to the figure. Very appreciative of those elements of the McFarlane sculpt, and this Batman is really bringing it. The head sculpt is really nice as well. I mean, there's contour and shape around the face in the mask area. Then, of course, we've got this chin section and the mouth that's on display through the cutaway in the mask. Really nice skin tones, really nice sculpting of the chin and the lips. The paint applications across the lips give it some nice lift as well. The white-eyed paint applications and the small touch of contour in the eyebrows and stuff, and the bat ear spikes all adding to the experience. That continues down into the neck as well, and you can see all that kind of musculature there sculpted into the neck. Very much enjoying that. And as a guy who was an avid Batman reader in the mid-90s and particularly enjoyed that whole kind of Knightfall, Knightquest stuff, this is definitely giving me those kind of Norm Brayfogle vibes, from that time, and I'm really appreciative of that too. I'm very happy to have a sculpted bat symbol on the chest as well, which is really nice and neat there. Not a decal that's been kind of, applied to the design. It's a sculpted bat symbol there with a good vivid yellow with the black bat symbol on the top, which is contrasting nicely to the core grey uniform and the blue elements. Again, very on point, very comic book accurate for the way that Batman was dressing at the time of the mid-90s Knightfall series. That vivid yellow continued into the utility belt as well, with a good old-fashioned clasp at the front and the capsules around the side. Very pleased to see that too. Nice aesthetic touch there. Could have perhaps done with a little bit more sculpting in it, but you know what? With the level of texture and detail that's going into the musculature and the fabric textures and whatnot, I can forgive that for sure. The colour scheme is all right. You could argue that the grey elements of the uniform are a bit too light, that they should be darker. This is, further amplified. My view on this is further amplified since seeing the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, the gold label exclusive that I mentioned in the unboxing section of the video, that has got a darker grey, and also some interesting paint applications across the bat mask and the underpants, the black shadowy effect that Norm Brayfogle used to put on his artwork, put on his Batman artwork back in the day. So I'd have been happy with that if I hadn't then subsequently seen one that had a little bit more comic book accurate in the darker grey and the more shadowy blues. However, that's not the one I'm reviewing today, and that's not the one I've got in hand. I'm quite happy with the colour scheme. I think it's comic book accurate enough to my mind's eye to the character in that period. And around those Knightfall narratives, and yeah, it's all right. If I was more capable at customizing it, perhaps a little bit of a wash wouldn't go amiss, but I kind of like that it's pretty vivid, to be fair. Hey, I tell you what, one thing aesthetically with McFarlane's Batman figures, and I only seem to really notice it on the Batmans, even though I've got other figures with similar sculpts wearing similar uniforms, his feet always seem really big, like super long, make him look like a golf club. I don't know. Anyone else? Is that just me? I just feel like his feet always stick out really far and look super big and long. And I don't really feel that way about other superhero figures from McFarlane I've got that are, a very similar book, or certainly the same sort of boots and legs. Thinking like the Blue Beetle and Booster Gold I picked up recently. But for some reason on the Batmans, they seem really sticky outy, really massive feet. What's that all about? And while I'm on the subject of just broadly criticising McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, got this weird knee thing going on here, where the thigh and the knee meet there. This little cutaway section looks very rough and untidy to me. I notice it every time I've got a new McFarlane figure using this style book, and I find it a little annoying. Like, I can't stop looking at it. Like, it looks really rough and untidy around the edges there. And they could do something a little bit neater in that space. But that's not unique to this figure. I feel that every time I look at a McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse fig. So it's up to standard. And certainly, there's the argument that I always make when I do a DC Multiverse figure review. When you talk about the price range and how much I paid for this figure and what I'm getting for my money, a little bit of rough around the edges is forgivable for sure. I mean, really, as far as the aesthetic goes, I'm going to have to give this one a thumbs up for sure. I mean, it's ticking all the boxes that I want from this figure. Does it have comic book accurate vibes? Maybe not precisely accurate, but certainly comic accurate vibes on it from this period in time that I love so much and was so heavily reading Batman comics? Well, yes, it does, absolutely. Has it got a good, stern, serious-looking Batman face with a good sculpt and good paint applications? Well, yes, it does. Is the colour scheme cool and classic? Yes, it is. Has he got a sculpted bat symbol and the traditional capsule belt? Yes, he has. All right, so the knees look a bit untidy. Oh, he's got pins as well. I didn't mention that before, but everything else is adding up. It's tick, tick, tick for all the things that I'm looking for from a Knightfall era Batman figure. So yeah, absolutely. It's from an aesthetic visual experience point of view, this Batman is a thumbs up. It's definitely a MoDXtra recommends on that front for sure. Okay, folks, well, on that note, let's move on to the second day and start talking about articulation. And right up top, spoiler alert, this is just very typical Todd McFarlane articulation situation where we've got what is basically a statue with some action figure articulation rather than an action figure with statuesque sculpting on it, because it's very limited compared to what I enjoy, particularly from some of the Hasbro lines that I pick up. It's very limited in that respect. And I'll show you. Let's start with the head. So we've got the head here. There's some articulation up. There's I think it's a ball joint in there, but very, very limited. I can move it all the way around in terms of having some left and right movement, but the tilt is really limited. The down, really limited, next to no up as well. You can just basically have him looking over each shoulder, and that's about it. Very exciting. Not. Then moving down into the shoulders, you'll see that you've got these big butterfly joints in there. These are pretty good, actually. I'll give credit where credit's due. Very good range of motion in the top of the arms and the shoulders there. Then we've got the hinge, giving us the T. Swivel there at the top of the bicep and the tricep. A nice double elbow with a very big range of motion. And then we've got the classic McFarlane hinge wrist system here, which gives you some up and down. You can swivel on the point there, which is all right. I mean, one of the things that I've often criticised the wrists and the ankles for in the past is that you used to have that little ball, which looked really uncanny. They've definitely improved that by integrating the articulation point more into the glove, more into the sculpt, but they're still not great points of articulation. They don't give you a massive amount of stuff to do, and when you do engage with the articulation, it still looks a bit weird and uncanny at times. So yeah, plus points for integrating it more, but still not as exciting as some of the other articulation points from other ranges. Then moving into the chest, we've got some ab crunch here, which gives you a little bit of forward and a little bit of back. It's a bit stiff, bit crunchy, but it's fine. And then you can do some swivel in there as well. There's also swivel in the waist, which mine is very stiff. Very stiff. Even have to put in a little bit of hairdryer heat on it earlier today. It's not giving too much, but it's there. And it's available. Then down into the groin area, again, it's the standard McFarlane DC Multiverse, joint in there with the standard range of motion. We've got a little bit of swivel at the top of the thigh, no thigh cut at all, decent forward, all right back, and of course a very distinct Russian ballet splits there. Then into the knees, double knee, giving you a nice range of motion all the way up to there, look. Then the classic McFarlane hinge and rocker in the ankles there. Once again, points to McFarlane for better integrating these hinges into the sculpt so they don't look like these weird, uncanny balls, and a pretty decent range of motion all around there in the ankle area. I just wish the wrists had as much possibility in terms of range of motion as they do in the ankles, but there you go. And of course, as is standard with DC Multiverse figures, Batman can bend his toes. Yeah, so, I mean, it's the same as usual, really, with McFarlane Toys. I find the articulation a little bit disappointing, but I kind of reconcile that from 2 points of view. The first is that I know going in that I'm getting a kind of a more statuesque kind of figure with some elements of action figure articulation to play around with within a certain limit. That feels a little bit pre-decided for me by Todd McFarlane, but there you go. And secondly, based on the price range, accepting the fact that these are pretty budget. Not pretty budget, they are extremely budget compared to other figures on the line. And what you're getting for your money is pretty damn good. So I'll take the limited articulation. So yes, I do find it disappointing. And yes, I do wish that McFarlane had more range in the articulation, more a wider world of possibility when it comes to the way that I pose and display the figures. But how can I be complaining at the price I pay? You know what I mean? I suppose there's just a slight bit of resentment as a collector that I always really feel like it's just Todd's decided how I should pose this, and so he's orchestrated it through the articulation to make sure I pose it the way he thinks it should be posed. Do you know what I mean? I'm probably wildly misjudging the poor fella, but I'm not sure that I am. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. So yeah, it's a bit disappointing, but it's standard by McFarlane DC Multiverse, levels of quality. So we're not getting anything less than what we've experienced with other DC Multiverse figures, nor are we getting anything more, but that's fine. And so I am going to give it a thumbs up, but a thumbs up with that small print that, that thumbs up comes with the knowledge of what I was getting already walking in, and an acknowledgement of the price point that has been paid for the figure. Because it's like, these are like $5, $6 cheaper, or in my world, £5, £6 cheaper than an off-the-shelf G.I. Joe classified fig. So the corner's got to get cut somewhere, hasn't it? You know what I mean? So there we go. Yeah, it is a thumbs up, but with small print. Right, let's talk about the accessories and the added value, shall we? Right, accessories then. Let's get started with the trading card. These come as standard with DC Multiverse figures, so we've seen this routine before. Although I notice that this has got these kind of rounded corners on it, which previous cards, I'm pretty confident, don't have. They're more square cut, which is interesting, I suppose. But yeah, this depicts the artwork that was on the back of the box, which is from, as I mentioned before, Batman issue 492, which is the first issue comic book that has the Knightfall title across the top. I showed you my very own copy earlier on in the vid when I did the unboxing section. And so, yeah, that's fair enough. It's a decent piece of artwork, and then it's got some biographical information on the back there, which is all fine. I mean, these trading cards are okay. I've said before, they just tend to go in a binder. I've got all my multiverse trading cards just hanging out in a binder, going nowhere, rarely ever looked at. So it's a nice touch, and I get why it's there because it's got some solid nostalgia value. But once I've now appreciated it here today, that's going in the folder, never to be looked at again. Then we've got a couple of hand swaps here. These are the open, grippy hands to go on, one for each arm, so that he can hold the batarang that's included, and they fit. They've got the peg holes on the bottom there. They fit on the wrist, nice and straightforward. Pop it off. Is that the right one? No, let's try that again. There we go. Pop it onto the peg there. There you go, and you have completed a successful hand swap. Very exciting. And then the batarang, there it is. It's in the same blue plastic moulded colour as the rest of the uniform, although it's got a little bit of a wash over it there. I don't know if you can see it into the grooves, or it certainly looks a bit darker into the grooves. It's nicely sculpted, got good contours, good shape. It's a little bit smaller than previous batarangs. Oh, so small I keep dropping it. What was I saying? With previous batarangs that we've seen with other Batmans in the past, but it's fine. Looks like a batarang. You can identify it on site as a batarang, and it fits into the grippy hand. Like so, really straightforward. And then, of course, there's the foot stand, which you'll have noticed I've had Batman mounted on through the duration of this video there. It's the standard McFarlane DC Multiverse foot stand in the black with the peg and the DC symbol on it there. This is one of the pain points for me with regards to the gold label version, because the gold label one's got this really cool Batman logo on it and stuff. And it's got a better trading card while I'm on the subject. But I'm going to stop whinging about that now. But yeah, I really appreciate that McFarlane put these in with all the figures. I find them enormously useful, especially with these McFarlane figs that are quite top heavy and can topple over quite easily, especially because they've not got a thigh cut or a boot cut to help with posing and articulation. So yeah, I always appreciate that. I think every action figure should come with a foot stand as standard. You're listening, G.I. Joe Classified. So yeah, there you go. That's the accessory range. And yeah, you know, it's decent enough. I'll give it a thumbs up, I suppose. You know, Batman comes with a Batarang, fine. Couple of hand swaps, always appreciate a hand swap. Trading cards, well, whatever. You know, foot stands, yay, definitely love the foot stands. Again, I have to reconcile that and kind of small print it with the fact that you can't, with the price you're paying for a McFarlane figure, you're getting 7 inches of well-sculpted figure. To throw in a couple of extra bits is great, you know, for the price point. Would I like more or a wider selection of accessories or something more interesting and exciting? Yes, of course I would. Absolutely, wouldn't we all? But for what we do get, yeah, I'm happy enough. There's no complaints on that front, so it's a thumbs up. It adds to the experience, and it gives you some opportunities to make your Batman look particularly Batman-y. Throw in a Batarang, you know. And I got to admit, to be fair, like the other stuff, like the grappling hook launcher and stuff that's come with some other figures, they always look a bit pants anyway, and I very rarely use them, so they could chuck them in and I'll just end up going in my bits box. So they might as well put stuff in there that I am actually going to use, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's it. That's all I got on accessories. It's a thumbs up, but with, again, a little bit of small print. Okay, folks, quick figure comparison time. Here's the new Knightfall Batman with the recent Hush Batman that McFarlane brought out. You can definitely see the difference in the kind of body shape. We've got the more kind of svelte, athletic looking, like I said before, the Norm Brayfogle style of Batman here, whereas this is much more bulky in tone and more Jim Lee looking in style. I think they both got pros and cons. I'm not the biggest fan of having a lot of repeat characters in my collection. Regular viewers will have heard me talk about that before, but I feel like there's enough distinction between the two that, yeah, it's not too frustrating. They fulfill different purposes and they're comic book accurate to different periods, so it kind of works. We're not looking at just a straight up repaint. They've definitely got their own things going on, but you can definitely see the difference in the body shape there and the scaling for sure. Of course, the next obvious pairing to take a look at is the Knightfall Batman with the Knightfall Azrael version of Batman. And these look pretty decent together. I think this new Batman definitely highlights something I mentioned about the Azbat back when I reviewed this figure. The blue is too bright on the Azrael Batman for sure, and you can really see when the two of them together, the distinction there. However, good-looking figures, definitely made a nice little display out of them earlier today, and I was taking a few snaps, kind of doing the whole, you know, it's time to give it back Azrael stuff that was going on, so that's all nice to see. Sticking to the Knightfall kind of subline within the DC Multiverse, here's the Knightfall Catwoman there. We can definitely see the difference in scale between the two figures, but they make for a decent pairing nonetheless. I feel like the skin tone difference between the two characters is the most egregious point here when you're displaying them together. Catwoman definitely looks an awful lot pastier compared to Batman, but, you know, how big of a problem is that, really? She just could have a pastier skin tone, but yeah, another nice pairing from the Knightfall subline. And of course, how could you look at the Knightfall Batman without taking a look at the Knightfall Banes from the DC Multiverse Knightfall subline? Great pairing, absolutely fantastic pairing. Very, very happy with these two. Although, I don't know if you can see here, I was doing some stuff. To scratch that off. I was doing some stuff with the two of them, trying to recreate the breaking of the bat famous kind of art scene with Bane holding Batman over his head, and I've put some smooshy marks on my Batman there from the gloves on Bane. Is what it is, you know what I mean? But yeah, look at that. Look at them paired together. Awesome. There's a display forming itself right in front of our eyes there, isn't it, eh? All right then, folks. Well, here's Batman going round on the turntable. I haven't found the pose just yet that I'm happy with, that I want to keep him in display. So I'm going to just have to take a little bit more man-child playtime with this one before I settle into something. But this is all right, I suppose. He looks a bit awkward holding the Batarang there, doesn't he? But I'll get there. I'll get there. And I'm open to suggestions. So if you've been taking pictures with your own Batman, find me over your Instagram lyrical stuff. Help me with some inspiration. I'd be open to it. I'm going to have a look at a few of my old Knightfall issues and see if there's anything in there that sparks an idea that's within the limits of possibility with the articulation that's on offer here. And just to finish up, final thoughts. Yeah, it's a good, solid figure. It looks like the Batman from the Knightfall era comics. aesthetically, design-wise, sculpt-wise, colour scheme-wise, all that stuff is good, rock solid. It's got the usual disappointment around the articulation that I feel with DC Multiverse, but as I mentioned before, I'll overlook that at this price range. It's solid. It's a good, solid Batman. Now, the question of whether this one is going to overtake the Hush Batman in my collection in terms of the one that I display most frequently, that's one I haven't made my mind up about yet. I feel like he looks more appropriate for what my nostalgic recollections of reading Knightfall comics as a kid and wanting to pair it up with the Knightfall Catwoman and the Bane that I was just showing you and the Azrael Batman. That all kind of works and adds up, especially since there's been a Todd McFarlane announcement. Todd McFarlane. Jesus. Tim. I meant Tim. I don't Todd McFarlane on the brain. I meant Tim. Tim's Robin. Timothy Drake. Gordon Bennett. Right, get back on track, Chris. What were you saying? So I need to make a decision around that because he's obviously more comic book appropriate. But when people visit my house, not everybody knows the difference. Not everybody's such a massive man-child comic nerd as me to know the difference, you know what I mean? But I suppose I know the difference, and that's enough. Anyway, there we go. So solid, and I would recommend it if you like me, and the nostalgia factor that's attached to these figures is what's driving your DC Multiverse buying behaviour. Then for sure, go for it. It's definitely got a good classic look uniform, fits in well with the other Knightfall figures from that kind of subline within DC Multiverse, and it's priced really well. It's not that expensive of a pickup anyway. So if you're a little bit on the fence, but you got a voucher or something, go for it, you know. Do you know what I mean? And there we go. That's it. That's where I'm going to wrap it up there. So thanks so very much for watching, folks. I know that there's so many other, content creators talking action figures on the internet you could be watching. So it's an absolute pleasure and a blessing that you chose to watch mine. Don't forget to press all those buttons. The thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. If you'd like to support the channel and show some thanks, then take a look at the super thanks functionality or consider joining and get some interesting emojis for use or whatever that offers you. I made some things. They look good, I think. But there you go. Hopefully, I'll see you around these parts for another review of an action figure, some trading cards, board game content, whatever, sometime soon. So have a great day, and I'll see you later, folks. Bye-bye now.